Balak, Balaam, Baal, and the ever double standards. Research on Parashah Balak. The following is an off midrash on the Parashah Balak, and as it appears in Bamidbar Numbers 22:2, 25:9. My sources are Sepharia, Art Scroll, Hertz, Internet, Reform, and Shabbat Limud Torah at CBI. All references are abbreviated in parentheses and are not read. Please opine if you chance to survive it. Caveat. In what follows, we'll assume familiarity with PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy. There is the universal principle of knowledge of PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy, under which all particular principles fall in place under its hierarchy. That said, the application to the Parashah Balak is case in point. It is worth mentioning that by exception, some parts are placed by hand. The definitions approach. Let's start with the definitions of the characters as these appear in the respective names of the protagonists involved. Balak ben Zippor, devastator son of Bert, he was a descendant of Moab from father, the son of Lot and his eldest daughter, and was king of Moab at the time. Balaam ben Beor, master of the people, son of kindling skin, was a soothsayer for the city of Petor, table of divinations in Mesopotamia. Baal Peor, master of the gap, was the supreme male divinity of the Canaanites. Ever refers to validity in contemporary times, inclusive of biblical 14th century or 16th century before the Common Era. Double standards refers to self-contradictory principles having separate domains of validity. Familiarity with Balak. The story of the Parashah Balak is assumed. This frees us to embark on the substantive and in passing provide a succinct summary of events. The Parashah portion refers to a section of the Torah teaching. The Torah Bible was meant to be valid for all times, places, and peoples. So, the question driving this research is what the Parashah Balak teaches us today in these challenging times. The talking donkey. Elohim speaks to the seer Balaam solely during the night in dreams. Elohim talks twice to Balaam before his anger flared against him as he embarks on his trip to meet Balak. Triad times Elohim sends an angel armed with a sword to deliver him the message. This is the passage of the talking donkey. A triad of times Balak strikes his donkey when she refuses to continue on its path. Only afterwards does a dialogue ensue between them and recounts the triad times he has hit her with a stick. It is only after a triad of exchanges between them that Elohim opened the eyes of Balaam. He then notices the angel with his sword drawn blocking the path. The angel makes a triad of comments to Balaam. He then responds offering to turn back. The angel synthesizes the instruction one more time with a sword drawn to ensure getting the message across. The instruction being that only the words that Elohim puts in his mouth shall he speak. This defines Balaam's role as messenger, just like an angel, and not as a prophet with free will, as is the case of Moses. That is, his role was communicated by an angel not revealed by Elohim, so he can only do as told by acting as the messenger angel. Blessings and curses. Next come the encounters between Balaam and Balak. All the time there are 7 bulls and 7 rams sacrificed at 7 altars. Recall, in Balak's own words, that Balaam is a seer with the power to curse as well as to bless. However, Balaam cannot curse what is blessed by Elohim. He can only curse the unblessed or the cursed. Reenacting the creation story. One may be left wondering on the reason for 7 bulls and 7 rams sacrificed on 7 altars. My estimate is that the intention behind all this procedure is to lend support to the creative power of speech, of prophesying by speaking, just as the Creator created by speaking during the creation story in Genesis. The Balaam parables. All the triad times, the parable is delivered as a blessing instead of a curse. Balak and Balaam meet at Kiryat Husot, city of streets. The first parable is delivered at Bamot Baal, ridge of the master, and is the Min Aram from Aram. The second is at the Rosh HaPisgah, outlook point of the summit, and is the Kum Balak, up Balak. The third and last time is at the Rosh HaPeor, peak of the cleft, overlooking the wilderness, and is the Matovu, how fair. Non sequitur. After the curses turned blessings follows a conversation between them, in which Balaam, now as regular seer without the intervention of Elohim, tells Balak of what is to come to the people of Edom. Finally, Balaam and Balak part each his separate way. End of story. It is a formal fallacy. The counterpoint of the above narrative is that the advice that Balaam gave to Balak about the end of days of Moab has nothing to do with Israel moving forward. So where do the sages get the notion of the causal relationship with the following section on Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, impaling Simri of Israel and Cosmi of Midian? The sages miss the point altogether, as we'll proceed now to demonstrate. This is no small matter, and it underlies a greater oversight which we will not cover in this limited brief. The PaRaDiSe formula. But before that, allow me to define PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy with apples and pears that anyone can easily relate to. That is, PaRaDiSe, godly, sought secret, S, from beginning to becoming, / spiritual, the Raj discovered, D, mental, remes, remit, R, physical, peshat, plain, P. The parables of Balaam. We'll first proceed to properly identify the two triad Meshalim parables of Balaam. This will be done swiftly to move on to the core of the argument. Solely on 2 occasions is the following formula employed. Quote, he took up his parable and said, word of Balaam, son of Beor, word of the warrior whose eye is true, word of one who hears the speech of Elohim, who obtains knowledge from the Most High and beholds visions from the Shaddai, prostrate but with eyes unveiled. These 2 cases correspond to the last 2 interventions. The first set is at the meeting at Moab, dealing with Israel having Balaam acting as messenger, conveying the blessings of Elohim, and corresponds to sought secret S. They then move to Kiryat, who saw town of streets corresponding to / The Rosh Peor, peak of the cleft, overlooking the wilderness, corresponds to the Raj discovered D. The Bamot Baal, ridge of the master, corresponds to Remes reflect R, and the El Rosh HaPisga, outlook point of the summit, corresponds to Peshat plain P. The other time is with Balaam as regular seer, telling Balak about the end of days of Moab. This in turn is made up of 4 parables as 1 and triune parts. Likewise, we would have the same correspondence as above of sought secret S / the Raj discover D, Remes reflect R, Peshat plain P. Unraveling the theme of Balaam. On 2 separate occasions, Balaam voices a proem to his parables. Let's quickly examine what it says using our PaRaDiSe synthesizer. Quote, word of Balaam, son of Beor, is word of the warrior / whose eye is true, DRP, word of one who hears the speech of LD, who obtains knowledge from the Most High R, and beholds visions from the Shaddai, prostrate but with eyes unveiled, P. We previously referred to the universal principle of knowledge and narrow it down, saying that our particular principles fall in place to its overarching supremacy. This is no exception, but serves to further confirm the rule into law. His first declaration is a succinct statement of Kabbalogy as word of Balaam, 1 secret S, and connected by word of the warrior / and finalized with whose eye is true, triad part DRP. This is further spelled out beginning with the spiritual of one who hears speech of El, D, followed by the mental of who obtains knowledge from the Most High R, and closes with the physical of beholds visions from the Shaddai, prostrate but with eyes unveiled, P. By the way, this last one, P, unfolds further into a sub-triad as follows. Beholds visions from the Shaddai, DP, prostrate, RP, but with eyes unveiled, PP. Note that Balaam first mentions Ha'ayim, DI, singular, and finishes with an Ayim, eyes dual, as referring to third or inner eye and the 2 faces and the 2 eyes on the face. Moses and Balaam. The specific question at issue is the type of relation Elohim God had with Moses, the prophet by excellence, as compared to that had with Balaam, the sorcerer gone for hire. The idea is that God was always chatting with Moses for higher purposes of revelation, while only happened to Balaam as if for a teaching moment. And this is clearly manifest in Leviticus 1:1 with Vayikra el Moshe, and called to Moses, in stark opposition with Numbers 23:4, Vayikar Elohim el Balaam, and manifested Elohim to Balaam. A score of things stand out. The verb used to address Moses is Vayikra, called, like invocation, with subject Elohim implicit as in a familiar relationship, and with the tiny letter Aleph A in the verb as if showing affection to a child. Additionally, linking the Aleph of the verb Vayikra and called with the Aleph A of to, plus the fact that this conjunctive is spelled the same as the short version of Elohim as El. By contrast, the verb used to address Balaam is Vayikar, manifested with the subject Elohim explicitly stated as if distant, formal, or businesslike. The coincidence of these similarly sounding verbs Vayikra and called and Vayikar and manifested is to highlight the contrast between a prophet of revelation and a seer for hire. In any case, Israel was shielded because messengers or seers could not curse what Elohim had blessed. Therefore, they could only bless the blessed, or curse the cursed, or curse the unblessed. The teaching moment. So then, what is this teaching moment after all? Well, have you ever wondered why their names all sound alike? Why it's so easily to confuse Balak with Balaam and both with Baal? It's simply because they all derive from the same root. Let's start with Balak ben Zippor, devastator, son of birth. The Zippor birth comes from his supposedly being above the waters and the earth and residing in the heavens. But our point of interest is his name, Balak, devastator, which starts with the second letter Bet B of the Hebrew alphabet. Next, let's move on to Balaam ben Beor, master of the people, son of kindling skin. He is associated with the radiating sun. His name Balaam is composed of Baal-am, master of the people, or Bil-am, without a people, and likewise starts with the letter Bet Be. Lastly, Baal Peor, master of the gap. His name is Baal, master, and the Peor gap comes from there being a gap between things to allow for duality. Likewise, its name starts with Bet Be. The root Baal. Now to the common root of Balak, Balaam, and Baal. It's actually common roots of Baal, consisting of two letters Bet B number 2 and Lamet El number 30. This comes across with greater clarity using PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy. Baal S/Baal D, Balaam R, Balak P. To make any sense out of this, we need to compare it with the name of the creator as Elohim gods, but in its minimalist version of El gods. Gods, capital G with italicized S, stands for God of gods. Here we have Aleph A with number 1 and Lamet El number 30. In Gematria, the correspondences are Baal, idolatry, 2 plus 30, 32 gives 5, letter H, meaning to peak, and El gods, 1 plus 30, 31 gives 4, letter Dalet, meaning entrance. Let's flesh out the above Baal and El to compare and contrast, starting with the latter as a sole standard and the former as a double standard. That is, El stands for Aleph S/Lamed DRP as one triad, holism as Triadism, which is the same as PaRaDiSe, including the slash, though it's normally omitted for convenience. Hence, Baal would stand for two, threesome, or by Triunism or dualism. Note that Baal has the Aleph A solely as a vowel underneath. El and Baal. The above critical point is worth repeating for emphasis. Briefly, for Israel, it's Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, creator, as El gods, whereas for the Goyim, Canaanites, is Baal idolatry. El stands for holism as Triadism of the soul standard, whereas Baal Baal stands for dualism of Triunism of the double standards. A cognate word is Elil, idol, and is closely associated is Pesel, statue. Note that closely associated is the word Hebel, vanity, which appears in Kohelet numerous times, Ecclesiastes numerous times, though it is not attested in the Torah Bible. As an aside, on the one hand, the Aleph A is the first letter of Hebrew, is mute, and stands for Elohim Creator and the number 1. On the other hand, the Bet B is the second letter, is pronounced, and stands for Creation House and the number 2. Due to its muteness, it is secret, and due to its soundness, it's manifest, respectively. They thus appear in PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy as Aleph S slash Bereshit DRP B D Resh R E P. In English, it's AS slash in beginning of DRP in the beginning R of P. Israel and Jacob. Now, zooming in to the point of all this, let's close Balak with the last section of the Parsha. In a certain manner of speaking, the closing section only gains elevation once counting with proper foundations. It starts with mentioning that Israel was camping by the Shittim acacias, and figuratively Jacob was hanging with the Asherim. The point being that Shittim acacias are associated with the Mishkan tabernacle, the holy, while the Asherah with idol worship of the Canaanites, the profane. It seems to be the case that Balism, idolatry, is potentially present, just waiting for the occasion to manifest itself openly, meaning that the previous narrative of Balak and Balaam is irrelevant to what follows next. That's precisely the point made by Moses, that the downfall of Israel is in Jacob himself, and not in the stars of divination, magic, or sorcery of Balaam and the entreaty of Balak. The corruption scheme. Next would follow the point of interest in all this. We've left the best till last. The last chapter starts by mentioning that Israel was by the Shittim acacias in divine communion. This is significant because the tabernacle was made of acacia wood and perhaps the tree of life as well, but that the people were straying away with the daughters of Moab in profane communion. Here we have that Balak ben Zippor, devastator, son of birth, and Balaam ben Beor, master of the people, son of kindling skin, were no match for Elohim of Moses. But with Baal Peor, master of the gap, is an entirely different story. The critical route for corrupting the Bnei Israel, children of Israel, is clearly laid out in the text. Quote, while Israel was staying at Shittim, the people profaned themselves by whoring with the Moabite women. They invited the people to the feast for their gods, and the people ate and prostrated themselves to their gods. Thus Israel became attached to Baal Peor, and Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was incensed with Israel. Just as before, when unraveling the theme of Balaam, we'll now proceed to map the corruption scheme to the universal principle of knowledge as coined in PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy. We'll be laconic using symbols for brevity. The ideal is Israel Shittim S / Jacob DRP, but what is happening is Israel Shittim El gods S, but people Asherah, Baal idolatry D, R, P. The tactic of the strategy is as follows. People whoring S / people prostrated to Baal Peor D, people ate R, people invited to feast P. The correction plan. The behavior of Jacob obviously made Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh incensed with Israel. Next follows the case of Pinchas, mouth of brass, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, and the impalement of the Israeli man Zimri, my music, and the Midianite woman Cosbi, my lie. Thus the plague was halted. We've already proved that it's a non sequitur. We'll leave this for another occasion and instead focus on the dramatic consequences for modern times of the double standards of idolatry over the sole standard of the Torah, properly interpreted. The double standards. The precarious situation of Israel and the people is one of double standards. That is, Israel is holy, all the while the people of Jacob are unfaithful. In order to get the message across as takeaway would require exemplification, otherwise it's too abstract. For that purpose, let's focus on Baal Peor, master of the gap. This encapsulates the divinations of the Baal idolatry and the like of Balaam were quite ineffective. Balak, king of Moab, relied on the Baal Peor, master of the gap, as imprinted in human nature. El diablo sabe más por viejo que por diablo. The claim of idolatry is that double standards are preferable over the single standards so long as you keep them separate so as to avoid the short circuit and the singularity. Imagine that. Today it translates as prioritize pleasure while you're young and worry about the afterlife when you're old. In ordinary jargon, don't fix it if it ain't broken. The problem is that our world is broken by any measure. We just choose to look the other way. The sense being that the problems are too complex for us to resolve, so why bother? And besides, the Messiah is just around the corner coming to fix things anyway. The claim being that the best return for our bucks is smile and salvation. The single standard. The corrective is the one standard. The problem with the double standards is that it's the negation of the Torah. A Lil idol and Pesel statue are attested. But just because there are no more clay or metal figurines doesn't mean there's no idolatry in our midst. The take-home message is that the double standards are today's version of idolatry. Choosing the easy way out to our existence of the Gentiles is rejecting the role of Israel as humanity struggling with Yod He Vav He. Worshipping Baal Peor Di is leading the life of double standards of dualism. That is, on the one hand, worshipping the Creator is PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy of holism as uni s/triadism DRP, whereas on the other hand, dualism is uni s/duality DP with missing R, and DP opposites separated by the crossed out remes reflection R singularity. The validity of the Torah is universal in space-time from the 14th century before the Common Era to today's 21st century. Contemporary idolatry is the double standards of dualism. An open question: who's the real ass here? The Nahash snake in the Garden of Eden is idolatry. Sleek talk of using the inherent uncertainty of language by passing the means as the ends. In Balak, we have Balaam not seeing the angel all the while. All the while his aton, she-donkey, could see it by talking uncorrupted speech. So who's the real ass here? These are the two talking animals in the Torah. A question pops up. Besides humans, a question pops up. How come Midian, starting south of the Sinai Peninsula, ended bordering Canaan? How come in one generation of 40 years period, it went from friendship with Moses as his father-in-law to his enemy allying with King Balak of Moab, all on account of falling into idolatry? The narratives. Which interpretation will prevail? Balism of the double standards or Ellism of the single standard? El stands for holism as uni-triadism of the sole standard, whereas Baal stands for dualism of bi-triunism of the double standards, bi-triudism or duo-triudism of the double standards. Licentiousness as cause or as effect. Balaam couldn't have advised Balak on Baal since he wasn't even aware of the Baal. That would amount to giving him too much credit, placing him at the same level of Moses. The backstory goes back to the creation story as PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy. Dramatic consequences. The following dramatic consequences of idolatry are trivial, self-explanatory, and require no further proof. Double standards in practice stands for two worlds, the one of here and now, and the other of the hereafter. While it may seem appealing at first sight, there's more to it than meets the eye. The CNS imperative of modernity. Salvation S, smile / sex D, success R, satisfaction P, and C for cancel everything else. White man speaks with forked tongue. Talking the talk and not walking the talk. It isn't hypocrisy. You can be whole and corrupt if you just keep it secret. Changing the goalpost during a game is fine if it favors your winning team. Justice is my private driveway, not a two-way street. That's why it repeats, justice, justice, pursue. Justice comes to the highest bidder. Justice is separate but equal. I'm all for exceptionalism of rules applying only in my favor. With the gap between us, we're all different, whereas without it, we're all the same. The world was created for our touring enjoyment, and so was heaven. Hágase justicia en la milpa de mi compadre. La falta de respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. Reading and viewing. Recommended reading in my book at Amazon, quote, The Sweet Spot, subtitle, All Revealing Yet Hiding in Plain View, unquote, as well as viewing my videos on my YouTube channel at PaRaDiSe Turullols-Bonilla. Enjoy my off trailblazing video, quote, solely PaRaDiSe Kabbalogy cures stupidity. Yours truly, Ricardo Turullols-Bonilla, Elohim bless. Thank you.